All right, guys. Well, welcome. It is a beautiful, beautiful Monday morning. For those of you that don't know who I am, I am Alex Sadoff, but today I am logged in as Brandon Cobb on the webinar. So, and Brandon is running a couple minutes late, but he's going to be here. I think he's also uh, may have dialed in as well. So he'll be here. This is the Land Development Accelerator. Okay. So we're going to be talking about exactly what we need to do to turn land into new housing communities. Okay. Um, so my name is Alex. My background, for those of you that don't know, I started my real estate journey really when I joined the Army. That was about 18 years ago. And I did everything from, buying rental properties. Really started with my VA loan, got a quadplex. That quadplex turned into buying another triplex and another duplex and another triplex, etc. Turned those into Airbnbs, then moved into wholesaling, then turned, the whole progression of a real estate investor, then went into flips, and then into new construction. Partnered with my business partner, Brandon Cobb, here in Nashville, Tennessee. And we did our first deal. No contracts, no JV agreements, just a nice, handshake. And we've been partners ever since. So it's love at first sight. All right. And he came from the medical device field. And it was a quick transition into being an entrepreneur. So let's just kind of get started. Look, so we have a 6-part series. Today we're going to be talking about how to find and target the right land. So if you weren't with us on these other weeks, this is kind of what we cover. These are subjects that we cover every single week just because it's so much stuff to cover. And we can't get it all into just a 1-hour block of instruction. So today we're going to be talking about the first step, right? What is the first step that we need to take to turn land into new housing communities? And that step is how to find and then target the right land in the right area. Okay. So why are we doing this? Really, because we found that there is a gap, a significant gap in, everyone, in real estate investing. There's some folks that are real estate agents. Some of you might be agents. Some of you may be wholesalers. Some of you may be builders. Some of you may have a rental portfolio. And it seems like that's kind of easily achievable, right? So everyone is teaching those processes. And there's a lot more that there's people in your family you may know that have rental properties, and that's how you got into it, or et cetera, right? But one thing that is not really talked about is how do you actually develop land? So we, kind of stumbled into this field, and we found that it was very lucrative, and that it is very attainable. It's just a process. Follow the process, and you can make some good money. And because there was a gap there, we thought that we want to bring more people into the community. So that is our mission here. Look, what are we going to learn today? So we're going to learn exactly how to find and target the right land. We're going to talk about, before you even start looking for properties, exactly how do you even know where to look, right? What area to look in, how to, check for neighborhoods that are up and coming, and then what real tools and apps exist. There's many of them that exist. We're going to be talking about the ones that we use that are very inexpensive that you can use too. That these are not, by any means the ones that you have to use. There are many different apps. They almost weekly or monthly come out. There's some new apps that you can use that may streamline it. These are just ones that we think that are cheap and easy to use. So, and we're going to talk about, deal killers and what to avoid, because this is where a lot of people make their mistakes, right? So, and how to analyze a deal, how to analyze if it's good and or bad, and what makes it good and or bad. And we're going to talk about how, what kind of script do we use? And, scripts can be tailored, but we have a shell that we can share with you. So let's just kind of jump in. So my story, kind of like I just discussed, I'm an Army officer. I been in the service for some time, and I got into real estate, by having rentals turned to Airbnb, wholesaling, flipping houses, and then got into new construction. So this is me and my daughter. This is just got recently married to my beautiful wife, Tatla. She's a dentist, so I had to have good teeth. I got to brush my teeth after this coffee. And then this is me on a construction site, right? Building homes. And then that journey kind of went from building homes, flipping homes um, to developments, right? Um, and the way that we got into developments, we're going to go vertical on a townhome development where we're going to build 36 townhomes. And all of a sudden, National Home Builder, when we were finishing up, said, "Hey, man, I'll buy these lots from you." And we're like, "Hey, they're not for sale. We're about to start building them." They gave us a contract, and we're like, "Okay, it is for sale." So we sold them that, and then we're like, "Oh, we have another deal right across the street, single family community. Would you like that?" And they're like, "Yep, we'll take that as well." We sold that to them, and that was kind of like where it all kind of started. And what we found is that, that was going through the process of 36 homes or going through a process of 300 homes. It's the same process, same length of time. It's just you just make more money on the bigger deals. And we'll talk about more in detail, but the national home builders actually like bigger deals, and I'll define why that is. So what is land development? There's really two key parts of what land development is. So you can buy, find raw land, right? So a forest that somebody owns, or a farm that somebody owns, or an infill lot that somebody owns, that sometimes maybe 5 acres, sometimes it may be 200 acres, right? And it all depends on the current zoning, on how many homes you can actually put into that property. Once you start the entitlement process, and what the entitlement process is getting through the city and having them going through the process with engineering and surveying, et cetera, to get that raw land, so that farm, converted on paper to, and that's what this picture defines, entitlement process, getting it approved to put a subdivision, planned subdivision in, right? So that is what raw land and entitling land. So what you can do is, the first part is once you entitle this property, you can then sell it to a national home builder. So that is one thing that you can do. And then the second thing that you could do is you can actually then entitle it, right? So once you have this process, get some investors and actually develop the site and sell finished lots, like in this picture here, to a national home builder, okay? Because national home builders, what they want to do is they want to build homes. That's how they make money. They don't want to really be in the process of entitlement because they have a specific target IRR, or return on their money, on their capital. And the entitlement process and all this land development just takes a long time, and it reduces their rate of return.
How does that work exactly? Why do builders just want to build houses? Why don't they want to actually go through the process of doing this?
That's a great question. So the reason they don't want to do that is because it takes a long time, right? And there's civil engineering, and then there's it's localized, right? And there's niches. What they're in the business of going vertical. They have built, thousands, hundreds of thousands of homes, and what they want to do is they just want to build that home.
They want to get their money in and out of the house as fast as possible.
They know exactly how much it's going to cost them, to almost to the dollar.
Yeah.
And they know exactly how many days it's going to take to build that house, because they've built it thousands of times.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to do. So, one of the things I said is you take raw land and you entitle it, right? So just to give you a vignette of a past deal that we did, we partnered with someone that had a land under contract. They went, we helped them actually go through the entitlement process. We paid for all of the engineering and studies, et cetera. And then we didn't build anything. We just took imagine the blueprints. We took, this paperwork, right? And once these lines were drawn up on this white paper, and then they were stamped and approved by the city, we now have an approved plan, and we're able to sell that approved plan to a regional builder for a profit of $546,000. This process took us 12 months. And there were some mistakes in the process. And if it was actually done correctly, we probably would have saved probably 6 months on the deal and made 546,000 probably in 6 to 7 months rather than a year. But there's a lot learned through the process. The seller was super happy. They made great money on their property, and the regional builder was super happy because now they're able to put some beautiful townhomes that are much needed in this area, right? And then, we talked about actually developing lots, right? So we developed these two neighborhoods here right next to each other, and you can do that, and you obviously make a bit more money. Takes a little bit more time, and this took about 10 months or so, and we're able to make a good profit there. So once you go through the process of learning how to do the entitlement, once you learn how to build your team, and that's something that we'll talk about, and who's supposed to be on that team, then we can go ahead and you too can then develop sites just like this. Another thing that you could do, I don't know if you guys can see, this road name is a Lala Loop. That is actually my mom's name. So I was able to name it. We actually tried to name it Lala Dean, and we got street signs that went up as Lala Dean, but the city for some reason didn't like that and made us shorten it. So we had to shorten the name. And then this road here doesn't have the name on it, but here in this picture, that's actually Sadoff, which is my last name, and Cobb, Sadoff Cobb Way. So people are going to have a really hard time saying that when they order Comcast or whatever they do on the phone. So anyway, so today we're going to be talking about, how to find land. And to find land, we use some tools. And these are the tools that we use. Like I said, Zillow is free. Google Maps is free. Land Glide costs $99. It's an app that we use that will give you some information about the topography, the streams. You're able to use a measuring tool within this app that we'll talk about more in detail here in the next few slides. And then Land ID, which is very similar to Land Glide. It's just a little more comprehensive. It has a lot more filters or overlays, right? That'll show you a bit more information that you may not get out of Land Glide. Land Glide, because it doesn't have as much of that data, it's a bit faster and easier to use. So it's a lot more reactive in the field. Google Maps, we use it, and we use it for the street view function, really. And that'll let you do what we call desktop reconnaissance, where you can actually, if you haven't walked on this property, you can actually visually see and look for some certain things like, and we'll talk about more details, sewer, water lines, electric lines, gas lines, etc. And then batch skip trace that we use. It's really cheap. It's 20 cents per search. Once we actually, here in this picture, shows exactly who owns this little parcel. It says Mr. Williams at that address. We'll put in that address in here, and we use to find that phone number of that person so we can call them. We'll go more into detail into all these apps. Like I said, there are other apps that actually have all of this information in one. They may cost more, etc. We use these, but that doesn't mean that you're kind of stuck to these. But this is what we're going to be talking about today. So if you don't have them, or if you do have them, you can also follow along during the class, and then you can actually, if you have these apps, actually kind of try to use them while we're learning about them. So step one, how do we target an area? What are we looking for? So what we're looking for is we're going to pick an area that is within 1 hour of a city that's growing with around wherever you are. So some of you are not in Tennessee. And so you'll pick whatever that city is, if it's Dallas or if it's Charlotte, North Carolina, or if it's Nashville, Tennessee, and you're here, nearby. For my example, what I did is I know that Nashville is a booming city, and I used Smyrna, Tennessee, because Smyrna is within 1 hour drive, and I know that that area is kind of booming as well. So I use that to search uh, for property. So I'll go to here. The apps that I'll use to search that area is I'll go to Zillow and I'll use Google Maps. Okay. So what do I do in Zillow? So I'll get into Zillow and I'll put in Smyrna, Tennessee. Once I put in Smyrna, Tennessee, I'll go into the filters where I'll put in the year built will be 2023 to current. I'll look for townhomes and houses that are on the market or sold. And I'm looking for who the builder is. And what you'll find is kind of like you see here, it'll say Ryan Homes. So we went to sold listings. We put in 2023. And then here it doesn't need, like in the previous picture, it showed Ryan Homes, but here you see a picture, right? It doesn't show who the builder is. One of the good takeaways is how do you know it's a national home builder is that you'll see it'll say lot 805. And if you click on a picture, typically it's not an actual house because they're trying to pre-sell. So they'll have a picture of a home and it'll say like lot 805. Or if there's multiple homes on the same street, it'll be a good giveaway that's a national home builder in the subdivision. And when you scroll down, when we click on this and you scroll down where it says listing agent, that listing agent will have a company behind that name. And that company is, for instance, for this neighborhood is Ashton Woods Homes, which is a regional builder. So that's one of many in this area. So we know that, yes, the reason we do this is we want to see, we want to target Smyrna, but before we go and start calling land owners in Smyrna, we want to make sure that there's actually a buyer in that area. And for us, the buyer is a national home builder. So Ashton Woods is a buyer. And then we'll take a list of all those buyers. We'll confirm that there's actually an exit for our strategy where if we entitle this property, now we have somebody to sell it to. Doing this process confirms that. We'll take a list of all the builders that are in the area. And so now we know if it's good enough to target that area.
Okay, so you have to have a national home builder to target that area. Is that
So
right?
you have to have a
What would
national.
kill an area? What is an area you would not go after?
So I would not target an area where there's only local builders, Bob, Rick, and Harry that are building homes. They may be beautiful homes, but we don't want to target those guys because they're only building 1, 2, 3, or 5
You
a
want to do
year.
big development.
We want to
deals.
do big development deals, and we want to be able to, because the big development deals and the big companies have big checks.
Yeah.
Matt and Ryan and Billy, the local builder don't have the significantly large checks to give you the money that you want to make on a deal. So yeah. So let's just say we found a development. So we looked at Smyrna, Tennessee. For my example, I found I used also Google Maps. So I just went to Zillow. I know that there's some subdivisions. I went to a subdivision that is the Ryan Homes subdivision. Right here, you can see it says Ryan Homes. That's their Derby Run subdivision. So what I like to call is riding the coattails of giants, right? So that little fish that's protected by the big whale, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have a symbiotic relationship, and we know that this national home builder is here. One of the things that we're using Google Maps for is we're trying to do a street view. Obviously, there's sewer and water because there's a development of this size and this density. And we confirm that by, you see this little manhole right there? That is a sewer lid. Obviously, there's sewer here. This is a water connection. So obviously there's water here. And this Google Maps just is a quick little tool that we can use to confirm that hypothesis, right? So then,
Right.
so then there is also lots. There's raw land, right? There's raw land right nearby, right? So what we would do in this instance, we'll say, hey, there's a national home builder and there's empty lots nearby. That's one possible and potential seller of land that we can then, entitle and sell the paper and or develop the site, sell the lots to a national home builder because they're already obviously there. They want to build them. So what do we do when we target the area? We want to write down, the nearest street name so that we can get on that Google Maps and kind of see what's going on in and around there. Or you may actually know the area. You may drive by it or maybe near your house, etc. And we want to make sure that there's homes that are already selling in that area, right? Because if you have an adjacent property that that builder doesn't own or is not, you know, and there's an adjacent property, that may be another phase for that developer. And the reason that's important is because if you think about it, that developer has just, if you're operating any business, you have overhead. So imagine he has construction crews that are already there working. You have marketing that's already been spent moving people into this area. You have a sales, team of probably 3 or 4 people that are already there that are in their model home. So that's why we want to be able to target that area. So if for those of you, to give you an analogy, imagine if you're having a rental and you have a rental that is these are all your rentals are all over the place, right? It's probably going to be really hard for you to manage. And if the HVAC breaks in every single one of these locations, or if plumbing breaks at one time at all these locations, it's going to be hard for you to manage that, right? So national home builders want to have a concentration of their homes so they're more efficient in their building process, which is why they want bigger subdivisions that they can be there for 3, 4, 5 years and sell these homes. So why is that? They want to be in close proximity because it's stable for them, it's easier to manage, and it's more profitable because as they sell a tranche of homes, obviously that price goes up, right? And they've gotten more efficient in building those house plans. So they're from the first tranche of homes to their last tranche of homes, the speed of construction actually increases over time. So when we are targeting an area, what is our checklist that we look for, right? Because we know national home builders want a bigger development for all the reasons that we previously discussed, we're looking for areas now that can fit 50 plus homes. Okay. Is there development nearby? We now know based on our Zillow search that there's a development nearby. There's national home builders nearby. It's within 1 hour of a major city. And with Google Maps, or our personal reconnaissance or knowledge of that area, we're looking and we're trying to confirm if there's sewer, water, electric, and gas in and around that area. The reason that we want sewer is because if you have sewer, you typically get a higher density in an area. Okay. Additionally, we want to see if there's road access. The multiple road accesses in certain subdivisions or certain municipalities will gain you a higher density because they want to make sure that that there's some fire safety and there's emergency response has multiple access points. We want to see if there's any streams or wetlands. There are specific buffers, and buffers means like area where you cannot build if there's a stream, and there's specific state and federal regulations on the disturbance of streams or the bridging requirements to cross a stream, or the buffer that we cannot touch wetlands in an area, or if we do, it's very costly. So we want to see if any of those things exist, and we use our tool like LandGlide or Land ID to check those out. Additionally, we want to check out the topo. The topo is the topography, and really is the slopes that exist on a property. Okay. So to do that further due diligence. So now we know, hey, there's a national home builder. He's right here. We will use LandGlide and Land ID to search for parcels that are near near these subdivisions that are near these local builders. Okay. What are we looking for? So in LandGlide, we'll look for road frontage, right? So we found that there's a subdivision here, there's a subdivision here. This is in Mount Juliet on Lebanon Road. We actually talked to this seller and are currently speaking with them to sell their home, right? So we're looking, hey, do they have road frontage? Obviously, they have road frontage, right? Is there developments nearby? Obviously, there's developments nearby. There's actually 2 builders here. Is there sewer? Obviously, there's sewer because we drove by and saw that there's actually sewer on Lebanon Road, and we know that there's this development here and this entire road, just from our personal experience, know that there's actually a sewer main going through this, right?
If you don't have the hands-on experience in an area, how can you easily find whether or not
Right.
there's sewer
So
in an area?
So one of the ways is that Google Street View that I showed you, where
Yeah.
we saw that sewer lid is in the road. An additional step to further clarify and verify that is to just jot down an email to that water authority. For here, it would be like Mount Juliet Water. Hey, I'm looking at this property. Do you have, want to see what the sewer?
So call the people that you pay your utility bill with.
Yeah.
They can give you a sewer map of that area.
Exactly. So, and then we were going to look at topography, right? And topography is very important because it costs a lot of money to move dirt. Okay. We're going to check into flood zones, and then we're going to use Land Glide to look at the owner address to then figure out how we can call them, contact them, go knock on their door, whatever it takes to get a hold of those folks. So Land Glide. One of the tools within Land Glide is a measurement tool. Okay. Why do we want to measure? So if you go back here, you saw that this is the development, right? And we're trying to target an area that's near a development. Well, if you know the lot sizes of what is approved nearby, you can make a hypothesis that the same lot sizes will be allowed to you by the planning commission or the city council. So you can get that approved. So that'll help you in doing your math formula when you're talking to see how many potential homes you can actually fit on the site. So this has a measuring tool. They'll tell you exactly what the lot width and depth is, and you'll figure out what the square footage is. Okay. Additionally, so this is the development. This is a parcel that I want to target. I want to make sure that there is road frontage. So I'll measure the road frontage, and then I want to have the mailing address of this person because I want to put it into another app that we'll cover here briefly, which is Batch Skip Trace. I'll put in this address. It'll spit out a number. I can be able to call that landowner and talk to them about potentially selling their property. Okay. So Land Glide app, just, briefly, and we'll send these out to everybody. Just send us an email if you want this, so you can kind of go and review this because we're going kind of quick. So the lots that we were just looking and measuring were 60 by 129 that are near that in that development. So that is about 7740 square feet, 8,000 square foot lots that were approved, right? So if we had, like, this gentleman has 21 acres on this site, and the 8,000 square foot lots are approved nearby, our assumption is that 21 acres equals to 914,000 square feet. We take away about 20% of that because that's going to be your road network, your storm ponds, etc. And we'll see how many homes we'll actually be able to get based on the square footage of the lots in that area. So the next thing that we look at is topography. Okay, so the topo is really important because this is actually a site that we developed. These lines, this is 800 feet. This 800 means 800 above sea level. Okay, 780 is 780 feet above sea level. 760 is 760. So these lines define how the elevation change between the two lines. When the closer the lines get, the steeper the area is, right? You don't want it too steep, so because then it's really hard to develop that site. Okay. And this is a better representation of what I mean by that. So if we had this entire site, and probably when you're on the interstate, you see probably maybe some blasting or some coring on the side or some huge retaining walls. Those are very costly to do. It takes time to do.
So that's an example of a very high topography mountain, and they had to blast that
Through
whole section out just to get the road through.
Yeah.
That's what you don't want to have to do.
Yeah. Now imagine if you had a house here. If you wanted to put a house here,
Yeah.
how are you going to put the
How are you
driveway?
gonna get rid of all that dirt and process?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's very expensive.
That's why topo is important, y'all.
Yeah. So Land ID, it shows you everything that Land Glide shows you, but a bit more detail. It's a little slower of an app to use, but the one reason I really love it is the wetlands feature. And the wetlands feature will show you, and these little blue dots here are the wetlands that you can see here that you weren't able to see very well on or at all in the Land Glide app. The Land Glide app only shows you the floodplain, which is your rivers. Okay. That's very important because why do we use that? We use that because we want to see how many wetlands there are. So let's say I'm targeting an area. This person has 20 acres, but then there is a river going through it. Well, that's non-usable space. So what I would do is I'll take a tool and I will measure in Land Glide how many acres of non-usable space out of the 20 acres do I have. So then when I go back to the seller, say, yeah, you're selling me 21 acres, but let's say 4 of it is non-usable. That's a conversation that you can have to reduce the cost of the acquisition for that parcel. Secondly, what you'll see is this transmission lines. These transmission lines will confirm the TVA and or gas line transmissions that are going through your parcel. And because you can't build under a power line, of course, you can use that tool to measure how much land can you not use because there's a gas line and or a TVA or a high power electric transmission line, right? So just to give you an example about the wetlands that we're just talking about, this is a national wetland. This is the floodplain of this parcel, right? It kind of just shows you. Obviously, why does that matter? Because no national home builder will build in a floodplain. A lot of local builders are able to do it, but national home builders stay away from building in a floodplain because sooner or later it will flood. Okay, it's not if, it's just when, and they don't mess with it. And we don't want to be targeting lots or parcels that national home builders will have a reason not to buy from us.
Yeah, they don't have time to go after flood zones, right? They've got plenty of property that's not in a flood zone that they can go after, and they're only going to focus on that.
Exactly. All right. So then the next step, let's say we found the area, we used all of our filters, we know if there's a floodplain, we know that there's road frontage, we know there's a national home builder nearby, we did our math and we say, let's say we can put 50 plus homes on the site. What's the next thing? Next thing is contacting the seller and seeing, hey, my name is X. I was wondering, this is who I am. This is what I do. I was wondering if you'd be interested in selling your property. That's it. And then shut up and let them talk, right? And if they're not interested, do you know anybody else in the area that may be interested in selling their property? Okay. And you want to meet that person as soon as possible, preferably in person, because then you have a higher chance of closing a deal. The number one rule is be genuine and be honest about what it is that you're doing. Tell them the entire process about what we're doing. For us in our course, when we meet them, we tell them exactly who we are. So this is me. This is my story, the process of actually of what we do and how we pay them, the amount of money that we're able to pay them. That is by taking the land through the government approval process, which then force appreciates the value of the land once the approvals actually happen. And once those approvals happen, we then buy the property. And this kind of defines and clearly defines the expectations that the seller should have about what are we going to cover, how long is it going to take, etc. So we use this one pager. If you'd like to, if you're interested in a one pager collateral, you can tweak it and make it your own. We can share that with you as well. So how do we get the phone number? So we got the phone number of the person when we were in Land Glide or Land ID. See, 115 Foxland Smyrna. What we'll do is we'll go to batch skip trace. Again, there's other tools you can use. We'll go to single skip trace here. We'll put the that address in. We'll hit search. It'll spit out phone numbers that are associated with that person, and then we call them. We call them by using our cold calling script. This is our script. honestly, I don't even use a script anymore because the script is in my head. And it's just, I've done it so many times. So for, folks that are new, you may want to tweak the script to make it yours, right? Every script has to be tweaked to make it yours so you don't sound like a robot. This script and this process works for me. And we have that. If you want this, we can also send this to you as well, the script that we use. And not only the script that we use, we also have the objections that we've faced and what I kind of, what I say when they, when they're, for instance, here it says, hey, I don't think I'll get a good price. Okay. And you just say, hey, I understand your concern. The market's pretty strong. I'll tell them exactly how I'm going to get them their price by having them give me the time that it takes to do the due diligence, to get the city approvals. That's how we'll clear, that's how we're going to be able to get the approvals, force appreciate their property to ensure that they get the price that they want. Because I want them to get the price that they want, because the more lots or the bigger development that I can put on this property, the more money that those people can make. So
let's talk about that for a second. What is the value add? Why does the seller want to do business with you? What is it about what you're going to do with
that's
the
great.
land?
Yeah. So what's different for me than what, that seller can do. So for instance, give you a great example. We bought a 22-acre farm in White Bluff, right? That farm in that area cost $425,000.
That's what she could sell
She
it
could
as
sell
is.
on the market, the comps for that house, for that land, $450,000. Cool. My offer to her was, really, what's a number that'll put a smile on your face? That's my sell. Like, I don't even give her a price. I want to get the price from her first to see if I can even meet those expectations. She said $700,000. Obviously, it's a lot more than anyone can get approved if they were to buy her home. So I said, you know what? Let me see what I can do. So then I take that 700,000 and tell her, okay, well, and talk to the city, figure out what I can actually put on that property. We're able to put 74 homes on that property. And I was able to then get a contract to her to say, yes, I'll pay you this $700,000. I'll give you your price, but on my terms. And my terms are that I'll take this through the entire entitlement process, which is the government approval process, the entire engineering process, make sure that the engineering plans, which is like the blueprints of the entire construction of the site, get approved by not only the municipality, but also the state. And once that's done, we'll close within 90 days.
Yeah, you're force appreciating the value of the land for them. You're able to give them a price that nobody else can give them because you're turning it from farmland into a new housing community.
That's right.
It's approved. It's worth a lot more money. That is a huge value add, guys.
Yep.
Huge value add. It makes your conversations a lot easier because you're not having to go after people who are distressed or have to sell and lowballing people. You were authentically adding value to their land.
Exactly. And the real key here is, once you actually have the basic due diligence on, when you talk to the city, they kind of give you the zoning and what they'll actually approve. The person or the team that's actually going to be doing it, it's going to be the civil engineering team.
Yeah.
So it's not really you that's going to be doing this, right? Once you'll hand this over to your local civil engineering team that has the experience that it takes to actually go through that process within that city. And there's also a process on how to vet to make sure that the civil engineers actually know what they're talking about, and they're the right person to hire for that area, right? Because it's not just the same civil engineer for all across America. And we talk about that more in detail in our course.
Yeah, we've got another section that we go into detail on that.
Right. But yeah, we'll talk to them, and we'll just tell them, hey, this is we're trying to buy your property. The reason we're trying to buy your property is because we want to put a neighborhood in it. If you don't remember anything, remember this. What is the critical items for your success? It is, can it fit 50 plus homes? Okay. That's typically 5+ acres. Is there a development nearby? Right. Because you need to have a buyer for that thing that you're trying to get entitled, right? That's one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people that get into this do, is that they spend all this time and all this money on the entitlement, on the engineers, on the surveyors, and and then there's nobody to sell it to and nobody wants it. Well, no shit. You didn't follow step one, right? So and I use public university, right? So vernaculars, 18 years in the Army. Uh, does it have road access, right? We have to have road access because we need to get to the property. So you can't put it into a landlocked area. Sewer and water, because everyone poops and pees and drinks water. So you have to be able to make sure that you have that. And does it have good topography and make sure it's not in a flood zone. So if you don't remember anything, take a picture of the site, make sure that it meets these qualifications, and then you'll have a good site, right? And then you too can do exactly what we did. So you can then, put together a subdivision just like this. And now there are, in this subdivision, we have 74 families that are calling this home, right? This is their home. And it's very rewarding. It's looking really cool. And honestly, if we can do it, so can you. I promise you that. There is a process. You got to follow the process, but it's not rocket science. Okay. All right. So, you want to take on this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people who've reached out. Like we said, the whole goal is we're trying to create a community around this. We saw that there was a gap here where there was not anybody that had created community around visionaries that wanted to bring their community to life. And so what we're building out right now is a program to help people either get started or supercharge their land development business. And so it starts with the Land Development Accelerator is what we're calling it. So this is a course that we've got that's designed to basically take you step by step all the way through the process from start to finish. Then there's the capital raising machine. So if people want to go and actually raise money and do the development portion, not just sell the paper. So we've got a step-by-step process for that. And then there's the mastermind community. So a lot of people have been requesting more information about this. We've been building everything out. We have spent, I can't even tell you how many hours of putting content and organizing things together, and it's still not done. That's why there's a wait list right now. If you want more information on it, you can send an email to info@learnlanddevelopment.com. But with the Land Development Accelerator program specifically, we're going to get all the business systems and processes that we use to run our business. There's a land acquisition blueprint, step-by-step guide on it's a deep dive on basically what we went through today. Same thing. There's the sales training. We shared some scripts, but we've got the whole thing on how to overcome objections, what to say when you meet, how to talk the right language. I mean, literally a whole sales course devoted on land and acquiring from these sellers. We give you the entitlement rezone blueprint. Nothing sucks worse than showing up to the city and sounding like you don't know what you're talking about. So we want to equip you with the knowledge that you need to be able to go to the city and be able to talk the talk and understand the entire process start to finish so you don't look like an idiot, because the city wants to work with people that know what they're doing, and they're probably not going to get your stuff approved if you don't seem like somebody that that knows what they're doing. We're going to give you the civil engineering management guide, how to select the right civil engineers. And there's also a value engineering course that's built in on how to value engineer the site so that you can understand how to read civil drawings so that an engineer just doesn't throw you something and you realize that, oh my God, like they over-engineered this thing. They made it really pretty. They added a lot of stuff that we didn't need in here. You can learn to value engineer and read those plans. We're going to give you the deal structure guide. So we're working on a deal right now where we actually had the seller contribute the land as equity to the deal, and we offered them even more money than what the land was currently worth. And so we didn't even have to bring any money to that deal. We're just using the land as equity to go get a bank loan and do the development. And it's a partnership. So we're going to show you how to structure those types of deals where you can save a whole lot of money and headache. We're uploading all our contracts and every single document that you could possibly need it. Attorney docs, contractor docs, seller docs, everything. And then for the capital raising side of things, if you've wanted to learn how to raise money, and not just for real estate, but for your business in general, you want to be compliant. You want to make sure you're following the laws. We're going to give you access to all of our compliance guides and attorneys that you need to set everything up. If you want to learn how to raise the money, we're going to do our foundations deep dive training. So what you need to do before going out and raising money in order to be successful. The biggest mistake I see people make is they go out, they try to raise money, they don't have a proper foundation. So we make sure you lay the right foundation first so that when you reach out to people or you build your capital raising machine, you're actually converting people into investors. Very important to build the foundations first. We go over our whole CRM system that's completely automated. It's awesome. We hit a button, emails and texts go out, and we raise money. It's really, really nice to be able to have something that's built. We give you the complete guide on how to raise friends and family. We have a course, free course on how to do this. It scratches the surface. It's an awesome guide. You can go out once you get your foundations built, and you can start going out and raising from friends and family. You should at least be able to raise a few $1,000,000 from friends and family. Everybody can do it, or their network, I promise. And then once you run out of friends and family and your network, we show you how to build and attract a machine that you can literally attract endless accredited investors. So these are people that you don't know that are contacting you to give you money. This is huge. This is where you can really scale your capital raising efforts, because everybody runs out of friends and family money eventually. We give you all the investor sales scripts, everything that you need when you're setting up calls with new investors or you're reaching out to people, how to not come across as needy, how to actually have people reaching out to you to give you money. And we have some pretty cool psychological stuff we built into the sales course there. And then we give you the email templates that we've literally used to raise millions. And so we've got a set automated email system that's designed to literally hit a button and start raising money. And the biggest thing right now is the fund syndication structuring. So there's people that we work with specifically one-on-one just for the fund syndication structuring. They don't want anything else. They don't want any of the other stuff. They just want to know, how do I properly set up my fund and syndication, and so that I know all the ins and outs so I can go and raise money. So that's included all in the capital raising machine. And then finally, we give you the guide to keeping your investors for life in this, because nothing's worse than doing all the work to get the customers, to get the money, and then you give them a bad experience because you don't know what you're doing, and they go and they find a different home. You want to keep the money. Next is our mastermind community. This is where the real value is. Courses are great. They're going to give you the tools that you need, that how to do it. The community is the support system that you need to actually bring these communities to life. So I don't even know how to value this, because you can literally hop on our bi-weekly Q&A calls. So we have group coaching calls where you hop on, you can get your questions answered on a bi-weekly basis. I think eventually we're going to be moving to weekly. And then we have a community. So imagine being able to post in the group a question that you have and you need immediate feedback, or if you're in an area that you're looking for specific advice on something and you need to get it fast, you can access the whole community. Alex and I are in it. We're answering questions all the time. We have our weekly non-negotiable tasks. So this is what you need to be doing every single week to be successful. We were on a call last week with some people, and they had this other business that they were doing at the same time. And the advice we gave them was, have you ever played a video game before? Have you ever set the controller down while the game is playing? Okay, what happens to your player while you set the controller down in that video game? You get slaughtered. And I told them that is exactly what you're doing every single time you put the controller down in your land development business and pick up the controller in your other business. So we really try to help you hyper focus on what it is that's going to make you successful and give you the implementation support that you need. And finally, you get access to all of our internal systems and processes. I mean, this is just 8 years of knowledge. Our whole goal here is to condense 10 years of experience down into 1 or 2 years for you, so that we can really accelerate your success. That's why we call it the Land Accelerator program. So if you're interested in that, you can go and send your email to info@learnlanddevelopment.com. Again, we've got a wait list right now, and if you want more information, we'll reach out to it, and we can set up a call and see if this is something that you're interested in, see if it's the right fit. And with that, we'll open up to some questions. Tara, I think we had some questions.
So Jeffrey Wolf says she wanted $700K. What would that entitled land project have sold for a national home builder?
Yeah. So, well, it's a great question. Can you turn off that thing? So, if we didn't want to develop that site, we probably could have sold that for probably 1.4 if we entitle it maybe a little more. There's actually, in the next course, we kind of talk about exactly how do we get to that paper lot number. it's always different. Um, uh, so for instance, let's say a finished lot is $100,000. Okay, so your finished lot is $100,000 if it was developed. And let's say the development cost is $40,000 that we know in that area. Well, so you take what a national home builder will buy a finished lot for, that is 100,000, and the development is 60. So now, or 40. So now you got $60,000 left. And then you got to figure out how much profit do you want to make, right? And then, but if if you're going to turn that paper to a national home builder where they actually have to spend the time and the resources to develop the site in the management, et cetera, they want to buy it at a discount, right? So now you've got $60,000 there. They'll probably want to only pay, um, 70 cents on the dollar, or save about 30% on their development if they were to manage it themselves.
Yeah.
So you'd have to then kind of back into that number based on the local development costs of that area, and based on what profit you want to make. So typically, if it's some deals it's 20K a pad where you can kind of flip it. Sometimes it's 15, sometimes it's 30, 35, right? So it just all depends. So on the one that we did where we got it for $1 million, we made what was that, 546 divided by how many lots were there?
It's 43.
43. So we made $12,697 flipping paper to a regional builder.
Yeah, here let me simplify that, because I don't know about you, but whenever somebody tries to talk numbers to me and I can't see it, all it does is just scramble my brain. Very quick answer. So there's 74 homes. We bought it for $700,000. So we're somewhere around $9,500 per pad on there, right? So we paid about $9,400, $9,500 per pad on that project. The question then becomes, what does a national home builder want to buy? Just the paper on that deal. Obviously, we did the development. We sold it for $85,000 a pad on that deal. So our development cost ended up being around 52,000. So all in, you're looking at being somewhere around $62,000, and we sold it for 85. So there's a $25,000 per pad spread on it, roughly. That's a lot of margin. Sometimes a national home builder, and again, it just depends on how bad they want the land, they don't have to make $25,000 per pad. They just want the land to build the houses. And so a best case scenario, if a national home builder wanted to be in that land for $85,000 a pad, which is what we sold it for, they would have paid, and their development costs were the same as ours, which it is. So they paid roughly, $52,000 to develop it. We could have ended up selling that for 34,000, per pad on that particular deal. And so if we had done that, obviously that would have been really good margin. We couldn't get a home builder to just buy the paper for that amount. They wanted to offer a little bit less. So we decided to do the development on it. And it just made sense because we had a lot of investors lined up that wanted to invest in it. So it depends. It depends on how bad they want the land. Your best case scenario is if it's a national home builder that is wanting the land so bad that they will literally self-develop it for free. Essentially, they won't make any money on the self-development, and they'll be into the land for as much as the pads are worth at retail. That's your best case scenario.
Brian, you asked what is the average time for start to close? It all depends on the area that you're targeting. For instance, if you're like Dixon County for all of you guys that are not in Nashville, it's about 35 minutes from Nashville. In city of Dixon and Dixon County, it may take about 6 to 8 months to go through the entitlement process. If you're in the city of Brentwood, it may take 18 months, right? So just depends on the municipality, depends on the county, and depends on their process. Some take longer than others. The areas that take longer typically have a higher yield because it is a longer process, right? For anyone that's in California, I'm sorry, because it takes
Yeah.
like 2 years to sometimes 3 years to get a subdivision approved, right? So just depends on how much bureaucracy. The deal in Smyrna we could have got done in 6 months. The deal in the town of White Bluff before they got a new mayor and new planning commission, it took 6 months. Now probably won't even happen because they're now a whole bunch of not in my backyarders and they don't even want development. So again, we also talk about that in our mastermind, where it's like before we actually start targeting the area, we want to make sure that there's none of that on the planning commission side. We'll kind of get into detail about what to do and the steps to take to ensure that that area is going to actually approve a subdivision, and nothing in the environment has changed with the planning commission or city council, etc. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it all depends on an area. So
Yeah, great question.
yeah, but I think we have no other questions, which means we've done a fantastic job. But hey, guys, thank you for hopping on. For next week, we're going to be talking about here. Give me a second. I'll actually put it. We're going to be talking about step 2 in this process, and that is um, the land due diligence and is it a deal? So diving more into it and just really doing the math,
Yeah, the numbers
the
behind
numbers
it.
behind it, the topo, etc. So getting clearly defined on exactly what we were talking about in due diligence, and diving deep just before we spent really too much money in doing that, right? So, but yeah, that's all we have. You guys, thank you so much for attending. Please bring a friend, share it with anyone that that you think will add value to. There's a lot of builders, a lot of real estate investors. When we see land, kind of get overwhelmed by we don't know what to do with it. But there is an easy process to follow to turn that land into communities. And there's cities all around the United States that are wanting these communities that are needing it. So with all that, I'll leave you to it. Thank you so much. Love you. Mean it. Peace.